It was just past noon. The aftermath of the intense battle on the ground had left the sky clear and cloudless. A single small dot could be seen. He's not gonna let us off the hook, is he? What should we do? I honestly don't feel like we can win. Yeah, it's impossible. We're so powerless I don't even feel like trying. Watching Dino and the others converse, a bear realized something was wrong. Or rather, seeing that Dino and his group thought resistance was futile, and considering who could possibly defeat Feldway. Iverge might fit the criteria, but since he was already here, that wasn't it. In that case, the possibilities were limited. I know it sounds impossible, but is it Lord Veldanava? All eyes focused on a bear as she spoke. Dino and his group awkwardly averted their eyes. That was the answer. I'm sorry, bear. I was a failure as a leader, Feldway apologized. Surprised by this, a bear realized that the worst-case scenario had come to pass. For the stubborn Feldway to admit his own fault was a monumental event. There was no doubt that Veldanava had resurrected. And this was the result. Dino being heavily injured, and Feldway being on the verge of death, it was all Veldanava's doing. As soon as she understood that, a bear fell silent too. A heavy atmosphere began to hang over them. Before they could even be surprised by the god's resurrection, everyone realized they were in an unthinkable situation. It was only natural that they were shaken, unsure of how to process this. I have one question. Do you know what my brother's objective is? Velgren broke the silence. He said it's the regeneration of the world. He intends to discard the failed creation and create it anew. Dino and Feldway answered simultaneously. I knew it, Velgren nodded. That is a huge problem, Luminous spat out. It wasn't something that could be dismissed with just those words, but it was a situation where that was all one could say. So, what do you all intend to do? Her question was meant to confirm everyone's will. Would they obey the Creator God, or would they resist? This was no longer a matter where force could be applied. If one chose to follow the God's will, they could not be stopped. For those without a direct connection, like Benimaru or Hinata, it probably didn't matter if he was a god or whatever. However, for Velgrund and Vildor, he was their brother, and for a bear, he was her creator. These were not relationships that could be easily severed, and it was understandable that they would be conflicted. That said, time was limited. Although Veldanava didn't seem to be moving yet, the time for decision was approaching. Luminous, for one, intended to oppose him without hesitation. She had no intention of letting the world she had cherished and protected be destroyed so easily. Even if the opponent was the Creator God, she was determined to assert herself firmly. As for me, I'll just follow Rimuru-sama. Even without asking, I know he'd say something like, "Don't screw with us, trying to destroy our world." Or something Benimaru said with a wry smile. Hinata nodded at this. He definitely would. Besides, I have no intention of blindly obeying either. Just because he's God doesn't mean it's logical for him to do whatever he pleases. Partly due to her family background, Hinata had complex feelings regarding God. Luminous was an exception, being both her savior and friend. Following Benimaru and Hinata, Tensura let out a laugh. There is no need to even wonder. We simply obey Rimuru-sama. Tensura did not waver. To begin with, demons were a naturally occurring race, and had no concept of loyalty to a creator god. They had their likes and dislikes, and while some like Guy had formed personal friendships, there was no obligation involved. They could choose their own path through sheer free will. As such, Tensura's mind was made up. Carrera and Ultima were likely the same. I'll go with whatever Masayuki decides. Velgrund, being self-centered in nature, always had the same criteria for judgment. She would simply follow the decision of her beloved. Masayuki, suddenly thrown a critical decision, was surprisingly calm. Or rather, he had simply exceeded his mental capacity. He wore a bodhisattva-like smile, emptying his mind. This was a technique Masayuki had acquired to look away from the horrors of the battlefield. Ha, I don't think I want to die just yet, Masayuki answered with eyes that looked like he had attained enlightenment. Masayuki's desire boiled down to that single point. To have the world destroyed by God after coming this far would mean all his efforts were in vain. Even Masayuki thought that was simply not acceptable. Besides, he felt he heard a voice deep within his heart. Has that bastard lost his mind? I gotta punch him and wake him up. It was the will of his past self, presumably Rudra, calling out to Masayuki. Since he had no reason to oppose that opinion, Masayuki decided to honestly agree. With this, Velgrund's course of action was set. If her brother had truly returned and decided to destroy the world, their fate was all but sealed. However, she could still live for her beloved until the very last moment. That was all Velgrund needed. I'll be with you to the end, Masayuki. Yeah, sounds good. I guess I'll try a little harder. Masayuki thought to himself that he wasn't as scared as he expected. The story of God resurrecting was just too grand, which was probably one reason. But more than that, having Velgrund with him was significant. His luck ability was firing on all cylinders, and he felt a sense of satisfaction that if this didn't work, nothing would. It was a feeling akin to resignation, yet Masayuki somehow felt that it would work out somehow. That was probably because. Hello. Good work, everyone. He heard that carefree voice. Having reverted to my slime form in an attempt to take it easy, I teleported to the battlefield accompanied by Guy and Velzard, all while being carried in Diablo's arms. It was harder than Sean and slightly uncomfortable, but the stability was outstanding. Or rather, it scares me that I'm starting to get used to it. As soon as we arrived, I hopped down from Diablo. Simultaneously, I shifted into my human form and offered a greeting. Hey there. Great work, everyone. Greetings are the foundation of everything, after all. It wasn't technically as if I was late, so I didn't need to make excuses. However, joining the fray late when everyone else was already giving it their all felt somewhat uncomfortable. Offering a greeting was useful, if only as a way to gloss over that feeling. Or rather, any composure I had to think about such things vanished the instant I witnessed the disastrous scene. It had become a hell of a situation. Benimaru, situation report. Rimuru-sama, I am so relieved you are safe. I received a quick briefing from Benimaru, his expression turned to pure joy the moment he saw me. In times like these, thought communication is incredibly convenient. So Valdora lost. I have not lost. And Milam got beaten, too. I was not beaten. Valdora yelled back while still fighting Iverge. Milam, too, immediately jumped up, displaying her sore loser streak. It's good that they seem energetic, but it confirms that Iverge is truly a problem. I thought only the enemy boss remained, but it turned out to be absurdly strong. That's a common trope in manga. On top of that, we have the resurrection of Veldanava. I didn't need to explain it. Dino and the others seem to have already conveyed Veldanava's presence. I'll take that positively, as it saved me the trouble. The dilemma is what to do about Feldway. I looked down at Feldway, who was collapsed on the ground. By any measure, he was dying. Setting aside the philosophical question of what death means for a spiritual life form, his energy was leaking uncontrollably. Judging by the look of it, he'd run dry in a few hours at most. Kufufufufu, look at you now, Feldway Diablo taunted. Living up to his reputation as a master provocateur, Diablo shows absolutely no mercy to enemies, anytime, anywhere. I was a fool. There was really nothing else to say to that. He genuinely seemed to be reflecting on his actions, but given the scale of the mess he caused, I didn't feel like comforting him. You only realized it now. Good grief, this is exactly why you are so obtuse. Diablo is scathing. Honestly, calling someone obtuse to their face isn't very nice. It's a pretty heavy insult. People might whisper it behind your back, but rarely to your face. But since it's Feldway, no sympathy is needed. Hey now, Diablo. Even if it's true, don't say it like that. Dino tried to admonish him, but his comment was toxic in its own right. I wasn't the only one who thought so. Dino, that's not helping either. Isn't it fine? This guy needs to reflect, and I have a mountain of complaints I want to unload on him too, you know. That's true, but saying it to a dying guy is... Well, yeah. At least if Feldway had installed Lord Veldanava, we'd all be dead meat by now. Pico and Gracia vented their complicated feelings in a similar manner. They seemed to feel the same as Dino, maintaining a somewhat hesitant attitude. A bear seemed to have her own thoughts on the matter, but drew a line and did not join the conversation. It was Hilario, rushing over, who interrupted. I came because I was worried, but is that Feldway? You bastard, why are you dying? He glared at Feldway while saying this. Feldway smiled at Hilario. I wanted to apologize to you, too. My bad. Hilario. At this late stage. I don't have much time left. Feldway laughed self-deprecatingly. Then, reflecting on his past actions, he began to speak as if in confession. I was blind. Believing it was Lord Veldanava's wish, I questioned nothing, and piled one foolish act upon another. I have no way to atone for those sins, but I have one final regret. Dino, Pico, and Gracia. A bear. And Hilario. They listened quietly to the final words of the one who was once their friend. I want to save that person, who continues to lose his way even now. His quiet words expressed a loyalty to his master that had not yet faded. I was impressed by his spirit alone. That said, granting that wish would be difficult. If Veldanava listened to reason, we wouldn't be in this situation. Based on Velzard's story, he seemed driven by dangerous ideology. He is looking down on us from the heavens even now, but there is only one reason he isn't moving. Iverge is still active. Rather than testing our strength, it seemed he intended to let Iverge and the others finish things, so he wouldn't have to dirty his own hands. Is that so? Is it different? He doesn't seem wary of us. It doesn't feel like he's enjoying watching us struggle. Is he waiting for something? Unknown, but whatever his aim, we can deal with it. however. Don't let my guard down, right? Roger that. Keeping my guard up against Feldenava, I stood before Feldway.